Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hey everybody, just got back from a hike and I took a little time to sit on my future patio and do a little meditation. The building, as you know, I've left the comfort of my home and sold it and my gym and everything, and we're building a new building which will allow me to expand the gym, hopefully have a better place to do podcasts, and we're in that process, which is taking longer than I thought. My timeline has been shot to shit. The cost has been a lot more with permits and stuff than I had planned, so that's shot to shit. But it's a fun journey, and it's really interesting to learn and to do this, and just honestly right now to be in this position to have this opportunity is amazing, and I'm grateful as hell for that. And every time I go hike around my property or behind my to the side behind my I have tons of open BLM land behind my property, and just sit there and watch the sunset. I'm so glad I'm doing this. I just it's going to be a little time till I make it all happen, but we're getting closer all the time. Fingers crossed. We're going to pour a foundation in a week, or pour the slab in a week, I should say. Today I wanted to talk about stretching. I did a little preview video kind of thing on my Instagram, and I mentioned this part of it in that, but I want to go over it again. One of the funny things, one of the biggest mistakes that I kind of made when I was powerlifting is that I thought I could, come up with this one great program that just works for everybody, and I felt that I know all these top guys, I can talk to all these top guys, I'll just see what they all do and write this great program. And all I really learned was that was a dumb idea. I know too many top guys that do too many different things. And it was interesting coming up in powerlifting because, like, when you're at the bottom, anybody who's even just a hair better than you seems to know what you're supposed to do. And when you're in the middle levels, everybody's like, oh, that won't work. Oh, you got to do this. And it was like, wow, okay. And I actually fell into that trap for a little while. Once I reached to the top level and I'm sitting in a hotel room in the lobby with all of these guys that I've known and know about, and their names are huge and they're massive lifters, there was none of that. None that I ever saw. I was sitting around with guys and we were talking about training, and it didn't matter what you did. It's like, it was just accepted that, hey, you did what you had to do to get to the top. So whatever you did is right. Now, we did talk about what else could we do, and guys would be like, hey, have you tried doing this? And it might be something like, what, I did try that, and it didn't really work too well for me, but it could work for me well later. And they're like, yeah, you never know. And, or people would be like, hey, have you tried this? And it's like, well, why do you think I should try that? And they're like, oh, because this and this and this. Like, they had reasons and thoughts behind what they did, and they all accepted that it's really about finding what works for you. So it was like lifters were more excited to try and help you discover what worked for you. And I would be talking to guys and I'd be like, hey, have you tried doing this or that? And they're like, yeah, or they're like, no. And nobody gets upset. It's like, yeah, I tried, it didn't work for me. Oh, okay, cool. Like, I mean, how can I say that linear periodization, just because I don't particularly care for linear periodization? I don't dislike linear periodization. I prefer conjugate for myself. But I can't say linear periodization is bad. And if I had a client who's like, hey man, I really want to do linear periodization for this meet, I would first go, well, why? And if they had some good thought behind it and some logic, I'd be like, okay, let's do it. I know how to run it. I don't care. I like other things better. It doesn't make it wrong. And even though I do conjugate quite a bit different than most people. So I mean, and that's when I have more guests in this podcast. I love talking to them about their journey and how they got where they got, because everybody's done it a little bit different. And who knows, maybe their whole system doesn't work for me, but maybe parts of it will work for me. Maybe they come up with something where I go, man, I got to change everything. Like, I got to try this. And I have had so many people on my podcast and so many people that I've met over the years. And even though now I'm not competing and I don't need to have huge, massive numbers, I still like to learn and I still like to try stuff. And even look back over my career and go, man, that worked. And I may have got a world record doing that, but you know what? I think this is better. So when I'm on here giving advice and talking about what I've done, just keep in mind that I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone. I'm saying this is what I know and what I like. When people come to me, and have me train them either online or in person or whatever, I'm always trying to find what works for them. I have a bunch of principles that I've learned over the years, and those are principles that I've seen, like, hey, a lot of guys do this one thing. So like this principle of like equaling, making sure your recovery matches your stimulation. Okay, that's a pretty simple principle. We need to make sure that principle works. Now, how are we going to do that for you? I like dynamic work. To me, dynamic work is a principle. You not only work heavy, but you need to work your speed. Okay, well, how are we going to make that fit for each person's needs, depending on what their goal is? So I think, yes, I have a lot of stuff. Yes, I like to coach a lot of stuff. I like doing these podcasts, and I love helping people. But in the end, it's really about finding what works for the person. So if I come on here and I have all these different people, I can't say specifically what every individual needs. So I have to kind of give these, like, here's a broad stroke and something to try. So even as I start talking about stretching, this is the way that I've always done it, and it works for me, and this is what I liked. But at the same time, I'm going to talk about Juju Mufu, who I met and had on this podcast before, and he's a really cool dude. I really like the guy. He has some different approaches to stretching, which I actually tried, and I went, this stuff's really interesting. Like, I have one of his books, which I highly recommend you buy, and he does some stuff different than I did, and I think, I'm like, well, okay, the old school stretching works for me, but this stuff's really interesting, and I've done it, and I go, man, this works really good too. So maybe that would be the route for somebody who the standard old stretching that I do doesn't work for. So I'm not going to go, oh, Juju Mufu doesn't do what I do, he's wrong. No, Juju Mufu does different things and almost, I don't know if I would say better or advanced, but like, he's doing things that it's just another way to attack it, and you need to do what's an individual for you. One of the reasons I do like Juju Mufu, though, is he's fucking jacked. So instead of there's other guys that I follow too that do stretching stuff and mobility stuff, who do a bunch of really cool stuff. But I really enjoy the fact that he's jacked and still flexible and mobile as hell. He does some crazy stuff that people are like, oh, you're too muscular, you can't do that. Bullshit, he just proved that you can do it. So that's one of the reasons I really like Juju Mufu, and I'll talk about him a lot, and I like to promote his stuff he's way more famous than I am. So I don't know what I can help him with, but I like to promote him, and I think he has good stuff. So I think it's worth people, following or listening to him. But I'm just trying to get the point across that, listen, it's not, if I say, hey, you need this, like if when I talk about recovery, man, some people recover awesome and they can train more. Some people don't recover as well and they can't train as much. Some people train really hard, so they're going to need a little more recovery. Some people don't even train anywhere near hard enough, and the fact that they even talk about recovery it's not going to freaking happen. They're never going to overtrain because they don't train hard enough to overtrain. So I just wanted to kind of, like, every now and then I feel like I need to come out and say that, because I'll say something and you get, some people on Instagram like, oh, it's bullshit. And you're like, dude, you're not even listening to what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's for everyone. I'm saying for some people that could work. But anyway, there's nothing you can do about that. That's a whole nother route where you don't pay attention to. You need to focus on yourself and focus on the positive and Like that stuff is irrelevant. So I wanted to talk about stretching because I have always stretched. I was fortunate to, in some regards. I guess it depends on how you look at it. I think I was fortunate. When I was young, my parents were able to. My brother's a little bit older than me, and they were able to kind of afford karate for one of us, and he was older, so he got to go. So I remember going and watching, and I'd be, oh, that's cool. And I would go home and mimic the stretching that they did and mimic the movements and stuff. And so I started stretching when I was really young, not knowing what I was doing, just mimicking what I saw those guys going through. And then when I started doing sports in high school, I was playing football and throwing, and I knew doing some reading and stuff, it always made sense to me to be flexible. So I learned quite a bit about stretching. I'm an old dude, so that's a long time ago now, and then when I was on like the track team, I was the captain, and I pretty much ran all the stretches. My coach would let me do the warm-ups, lead the warm-ups, and lead all the stretches, and he never questioned what I chose to do with everybody. And so coming into lifting, I always just kind of stretched. I wouldn't say I stretched all the time, but I always just kind of stretched. And then getting into powerlifting, and especially once I really started to learn about powerlifting, and it was always funny to me because I did take the conjugate, and conjugate, like Louis studies the Russian stuff and all these Eastern Bloc stuff, and then he transferred it to this, and I'm like, well, the Russians were really big on stretching and flexibility. How come that didn't make it across? But I think I have an idea why, and it's because nobody likes to stretch because stretching sucks. Which I'm the first to agree. It's honestly, like, I don't enjoy stretching. I enjoy the aftermath of stretching. I feel great after stretching. Like, I feel really good. And I like being able to go hit my positions. But so I want to start with the stretch reflex. That was one of the things I heard a lot. Well, I don't want to mess up my stretch reflex. And I didn't finish my schooling. I think I got 2.5 or 3 years of college. I never finished it. I couldn't stand school. So I don't have a degree. I don't really give a shit about all the names of everything. With my memory, I've learned to just focus on what's important to me, and a name is not important to me. So, I mean, you could go deeper into this than I'm going to go, and you can go ask some little scientists, but at the same point, okay, so the scientists may have studied it, and they may have done studies, but until you look at those studies and look deeply at the studies, you don't really know what they're saying. And we all know there's a lot of studies that are bent to an outcome, not doing the study and seeing what the outcome is. And for the same note, for the schooling that they went to and for the studies that they do, well, I did life. My school was life. My school was actively doing it. My school was myself. It was the people that I've trained. It was my teammates. And it was just all the things that I see going through life. And okay, I don't have a degree, but I do have one of the highest squats in history. At least at the time, it was like 4th. I think now maybe it's 10th or 11th or something like that. And actually, I don't know if anybody raw has out squatted what I did in gear, but they're getting damn close. It's crazy and awesome. So, I mean, there's still some, I didn't just do it randomly. There's a lot of thought behind it. So with your stretch reflex, there's actually different aspects of this. There's a dynamic stretch reflex, and then what do they call the other one? I can't remember what they call the other one, but it's basically like, God damn it, I can't believe I can't think of that right now. There's the dynamic stretch reflex, and then the regular stretch reflex, which isn't dynamic, but like you go down in a normal speed and you still at some point your muscles do that. And then you have the Golgi tendon apparatus, you have the muscle spindle fibers, and the muscle spindle fiber is going to look at the length of the muscle and if it's getting stretched too much. And the Golgi tendon, it will actually shut things down if it thinks that there is a chance of something damage happening. And there's also the antagonistic and protagonistic. If your stretch reflex activates your quads, part of that whole process is going to be to shut down your hamstrings and flex your quads so that it doesn't stretch anymore. Which is kind of counterintuitive in my brain, because the harder you flex it, you're still kind of shortening it a little bit. But it's not necessarily stretching it. So there's the shortening of the muscle, and then there's the stretching of the muscle. So there's a lot to it, a lot more than I truly know. I'm keeping this on a blue collar basic level. So if I'm going into a squat and I can't hit my depth, but I'm putting on a bunch of weight and trying to use the weight to get me to depth, and now my muscle is so tight that now it's stretching before I even get to depth, isn't my body going to go, hey, wait a minute, dude, you're going to screw something up? And it's going to try to shut off. If it shuts off the antagonistic muscle, that antagonistic muscle is still a stabilizer. So if you are a forward squatter and you're using your quads and you shut off your hamstrings, you shut off the stability. So therefore your quad, it may flex harder, but it doesn't have the stability to actually show its full potential of strength. So that logic right there tells me that the stretch reflex is not a good thing. And then we go to, and then the fact is, I believe the studies have shown that the stretch reflex can flex the muscle harder than just flexing the muscle. But I also believe that flexing the muscle can activate the stretch reflex. So my other argument is like, oh, I'm not going to stretch. I'm going to be tight because I don't want to mess up my stretch reflex. Okay, so then you're not in the best position to utilize the best technique. And I keep saying it, powerlifting is not about the strongest person. It's about the person that lifts the most weight. So I had a friend, huge traps. And one day I came up and I grabbed him on the traps and I'm like, dude, I'm just fucking with you. You don't have to tense up. I'm not going to hurt you. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm not tensed up. And I grab his traps again and I'm like, dude, you're fucking flexing your traps, man. He's like, no, I'm not, dude. I'm just yoked. I'm just jacked. And I go, you do realize a muscle's not supposed to be hard all the time, right? I go, you've seen Ronnie Coleman's videos where he's getting massages and his muscles are all supple and loose and everything. Your muscle shouldn't be tight all the time. I go, are you stressed? Are you what the hell's going on, man? No, everything's pretty good. It's normal. He had actually been training so hard and was so overtrained that his muscles were like rocks all the time. And that, being stretched like this, he got so tight that he can't depress his shoulders. And his back was so tight that he was just in a rolled forward position all the time, and his back muscles are just so wadded up that they won't even fully contract and move his scaps in. So when he benched, he couldn't really scapular retract anymore. So there's no way he was able to bench as much as he was capable of. And he was putting his shoulders in a horrible position that at some point will catch up with him. And he's going to have all kinds of shoulder issues as he gets older. Because with those muscles, if you're so tight in the anterior and your back's just pissed off and stuck where it's at, now your glenohumeral joint, instead of it being where it can move freely and how it's supposed to, now that whole thing is rolled forward. And everything is here, not moving and free how it should be. Well, that's just going to wear out that articular cartilage and it's just going to screw up your shoulder. So if you can't hit the correct positions, even if the stretch reflex does allow you to lift a little more, you're still lifting less than you could if you were in the correct position. Then let's go to, because we all know the best example of the stretch reflex is basketball players, high jumpers. We all know that if you eccentrically go down faster, you're going to spring up faster. But how deep does a high jumper actually squat before they jump? how deep does a basketball player, how deep did how deep did Michael Jordan go before he launched himself from the free throw line? He only went down like maybe a third of a squat to launch himself back up. So he was still activating the stretch reflex. You can't tell me Michael Jordan was so inflexible that he couldn't sit in a chair. Because I've seen him sit in a chair. So that kind of blows the idea of, oh, I got to be tight and I have to like, in order to get the stretch reflex, I have to like push my muscles beyond where they're capable of. Like that doesn't make any sense. So going, I'm not going to stretch so that I'm tighter when the weight forces me in the hole. That's not going to make any sense. Or it doesn't make any sense. Now the benefit to that is basically if you don't have gear, like you still need 400 or 500 pounds to hit depth. So basically if you're tight enough, your body is kind of like your gear now. But I can tell you what, I would rather blow out a suit than blow out my muscles. So I don't think that's an intelligent route to go either. So the way I see it, I've never really heard a good argument of like, oh, I don't stretch because it'll mess up my stretch reflex. Now I have seen studies that say if you stretch all the time and you push beyond this limit all the time, you will, in essence, you will neurologically, your body will get used to it, so your stretch reflex won't be as strong. I don't know. I mean, that kind of makes sense to me, but that's not the point. You're not like, I wasn't always stretching to get more and more flexible. I kind of got to the point where I needed to be, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stretch. I don't have to stretch that much now. So it's not like I was stretching to start. When I first started squatting wide, I was stretching every night. And then as I got to where I needed to be, it was like, okay, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm here. You know, this is where I need to be. So I'm going to stretch just to maintain this, which is not hard at all. I just proved that when I hadn't stretched in like, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks. And within a week, I could put my forehead on the floor again. And then going into the next one, and this was an interesting one too, as I've heard people go, oh, well, my joints will get too lax if I stretch. Okay, first of all, this makes no sense to me because some of the most flexible people I know are sumo wrestlers and gymnasts. Do you think the gymnasts' joints are loose with the shit that they do? And it doesn't make sense anyway. Your muscle is elastic. So even if you stretch it out and it's more flexible, it doesn't mean like your tendons are just going to be waggly loose inside your body. Like that's not going to happen. And your ligaments are what more hold your joint together anyway. So I don't understand that thinking at all. And gymnasts are very flexible because they can get in these positions and they need to be into these positions. And look at how goddamn explosive they are. They're crazy explosive and strong. Now look at a sumo wrestler. If you've ever looked into sumo wrestlers, they have a very interesting life. It's really a fascinating sport that they have to go through with a lot of, I guess you would say heritage, or there's another word, but I can't think of it. Like just the going by tradition, the tradition of it. Well, one of the things they do is they'll do their own flyers, and then they have to like sit down and they roll them up to package them up so they can have people put them up. Well, they sit on the floor, spread eagle, almost like the stretch that I showed. And these big, humongous dudes are all sitting on the floor, spread eagle, bending forward, rolling up all these flyers for their next tournament. And these guys, I would argue that sumo wrestlers are some of the most explosive athletes for the shortest distance. They may not go long, but if you watch those two big bastards, man, as soon as their hands touch the ground, and first of all, how are they getting down low enough to touch their hands to the ground? Because they're flexible as shit. But when they go, man, those guys will move a foot as fast, if not faster than anyone. It's really pretty amazing. Again, they're super flexible. They don't have any loose, sagging, slacked joints from that. So on the flip side, I was up training with Chris Duffin when it was Kabuki Strength, and I have a ton of respect for Chris's knowledge in the sport, but I'm just one of those guys where it's like, okay, even if you are knowledgeable, I'll listen to you, but I'm going to have questions, and I'm going to want to understand. I'm not going to say I understand if I don't understand. But we were talking about stretching and stuff, and he goes, why do you still stretch before you do your lifts? Because I think that at that time, I think he was thinking that it kind of decreases some of your ability to produce force, which I don't know that I necessarily am sold on that idea. But at the same time, you know, he asked if I needed to stretch, like, do you need to stretch to hit depth? And I go, oh, no, I can hit depth. I can get out of bed and hit depth. That's easy. And he's like, so why do you still stretch before you squat? And I was like, habit. Like, I like the routine of it. Like, that's when I'm stretching, that's also my time to mentally prepare for the training that I have coming up and what I want to hit, and focusing on technique and all that stuff. So I just kind of do it, and it just makes it, you know, just like, okay, depth's really easy now. But he convinced me to kind of back off of that. So when I used to stretch all the time before any leg days or upper days, I kind of backed off of that a little bit, and it didn't really have any effect at all that I noticed. I wasn't better or worse either way. So I don't, that whole thing I'm not really certain about from my experience. Not to say that, I mean, maybe there is something to the research, I don't know. But again, there's a lot of research. You got to really look at research, because they may go, yeah, we proved that it's worse. Okay, by how much? Well, you're going to be like 0.00% weaker because of that. I go, so like what? Like an eighth of a pound I'm going to be weaker? Like, really? I don't give a shit. Which actually spurred another thought that I had here, but it already left me. So let's move on with the stretching thing. So every person that's given me a reason why they don't stretch has never made sense to me. I mean, I've never saw or been given a reason to where I would go, okay, then don't stretch. Like, yeah, you're right, you shouldn't stretch. Never have I seen that. Now, what I have seen is, we'll go back to technique. I have seen guys that want to squat wide, like the older West Side lifters, and like I did, but they don't have the flexibility to do that. So they're thinking conjugate, posterior training, I need to get posteriorly stronger, but they can't use their posterior chain well because they don't have the flexibility to actually hit the position they need. And I love, when I was doing a lot more seminars, and maybe when the building's up, I'll be able to do some more seminars. I really enjoy putting on seminars. But I'm not super social, and I'm not super talkative all the time, and especially in public. So when guys would come in, I just kind of listen and find out who I'm going to be coaching. If it's a seminar I'm putting on, I'm coaching everybody. But like, I did a lot of elite FTS seminars, and I would end up getting a group. So once I figured out kind of who I had, and I just kind of watch and observe and try to gather information. And I would, if I saw a guy that's like, yeah, I train conjugate, I do reverse hypers, I do RDLs, I do da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So this guy's got a fairly strong post. Sorry for the shaking. My setup here in the travel trailer isn't the best. I'll try to not put my hands on the table. I see the guy and I go, oh, it's probably got a pretty decent posterior chain. And then when we start warming up, I'll be like, oh yeah, man, this guy's technique sucks, but he has a strong posterior chain. So I'm going to put anywhere from 25, maybe 100 pounds on his squat today. And I'm going to look like I'm a genius. Well, that's not really the case. All I'm going to do is teach him how to utilize the muscles he's been building as stronger, but he's not utilizing in his technique right now. So I didn't make him 25 to 100 pounds stronger. I just showed him how to use the muscles that he's built in that lift. So if you don't have the flexibility to optimize your technique, you're not showing your true strength. And again, what's powerlifting about? It's about lifting the most amount of weight. And there's a lot more to that than just being strong. Being strong is part of it, but it's not all of it. So in that case, you got somebody who wants to go wide, but they can't keep their knees out. Okay, then they're still going to be squatting with a lot of adductor and a lot of quad. Are they really sitting back? Are they really getting all they can out of their glutes and hamstrings? Probably not. So that's going to limit them right there. If they don't have the ability to maintain a neutral low back arch and they're rounding really bad, that's going to maintain their strength. And it may make their technique even worse because it might lead to them being forward in the squat. The same thing in the bench. I see a lot of people with big upper backs, especially the guys with huge traps that were like earlier I talk about. They can't even, like, they can't fully retract. Like, they can go heavy as shit in a shrug, and their shrug's like this because that's all the movement they have. And if I have them do a scapular retraction exercise, holy shit, they can't hardly move their scaps. Like, there's hardly any movement in them because their muscles are so tight and so pissed off. So now they're going to lay down on the bench. They can't fully retract. They can't fully depress their shoulders. So there's no way they can get in the optimum position. So how are they ever going to bench what they're capable of? So the main reason I think for stretching, like my number one reason for stretching, is to get me in the best position for powerlifting. That's if I'm a power lifter, the main reason I want to stretch is so that I can show my true strength on the platform and take advantage of the best technique possible. Now, if we go further into that, stretching helps increase blood flow. Blood flow carries the nutrients to the muscle, which is going to be needed for recovery. So stretching will help with recovery from the sense that it's going to help your muscles flow more blood. And it's not going to be a super hard thing to recover from. I mean, if you're stretching correctly, it's uncomfortable, but it's not like anything that's really difficult that's going to be like, oh, it takes so much energy away from your recovery. No, it's not going to take that much energy from recovery, but it is going to increase blood flow. Also, we have, and I don't know if this is the technical name, it's just what I always called it, even way back in physical therapy, and then now I call it hypertonicity. If your muscle is like kind of flexed all the time, like it never fully relaxed, like I talked about my buddy with the traps. Your muscle is not flexed all the time. It should be soft and supple. If your muscle is hard as a goddamn rock, it is not healthy. Like, and how are you supposed to recover when your muscle is flexed all the time? Like, that's going to slow your recovery way down. It's going to be horrible for your joints. It's going to hold your shit in a really bad position. If you get really tight and your pecs are tight all the time, boom. What did your shoulders do? They just rolled forward. You can't even hardly see because I'm the same color as my wallpaper in here. But like, you're like this all the time. Now your shoulder's locked in this position. So every other thing you do is going to be more harm on your shoulder because you're not in that neutral position where it should be. So that muscle needs to be relaxed. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm a big fan of Donnie Thompson's body tempering and with all of his different apparatuses. That is a great way to get those muscles to relax. And it's an easy way because, I mean, like, well, Donnie one time put a whole bunch of them on me and I thought I was on my belly in a prone position. I thought I was going to friggin' suffocate. I couldn't hardly breathe. But if you get that weight on there and you relax and breathe, like, you will feel your muscles actually, they'll be all tense and knotted up and you'll just feel them go. And you're like, oh, geez, that feels great, man. Like, a lot of times guys will have elbow pain or shoulder pain because their bicep is tense all the time. So you get down, you put the geisha on it. I think it was called the geisha. I can't remember the names of things. And lay it on your bicep and you just relax and you'll feel it. You'll feel when that muscle relaxes and you'll be like, oh my God, man. Like, now my shoulder's moving free and everything feels good. Like that. So there's other options out there, you know. But stretching also does that same thing. If you have a very hypertensive muscle and you stretch it properly, it will relax. And I'm not sure the total, I mean, it's got something to do with like the Golgi tendon and muscle spindle, but I'm not sure the exact mechanics of it. You'd have to actually go to somebody smarter than me for that. I know what happens, and sometimes that's all I need to know. So you have that. You have that. Now you have the health of the joint moving. Like I said, if you're too tight in one area, it's going to help. So if you stay flexible and you stay aware of your positions and keeping all the muscles, the protagonist, the antagonist, you keep everything flexible, now your longevity in the sport is going to go way longer. Your joints are going to last longer, they're going to be healthier, and you're going to be able to lift and compete a whole lot longer. Not to mention the quality of life. And again, all this stuff is great for the power lifter. To me, it's even more for the 70-year-old, the guy that spent his whole life working and finally got to retire. I want to help that dude like get the fucking most out of his retirement. I want that guy to be healthy for absolutely as long as possible because he worked his damn ass off to get there. I want him to get the most out of it. So I want him to live as long and as healthy as possible. Well, flexibility is going to help that happen. And that's pretty much, to me, that's enough to go, maybe I should think about flexibility. Maybe I should train this stuff. One other aspect, and then this is what I made the post about, is autoregulation. So if you stretch regular, and there's a lot of different autoregulations. I've tried all of them, and I think to some extent, your HRV, your grip strength. I think grip strength is actually one of the better ones. But stretching is the same way. If you stretch regular and all of a sudden you're like, damn, dude, I'm like, every time I stretch, I seem to be a little tighter. And getting to my normal flexibility is like harder. Well, then your body's not recovering enough. And you either need to pick up your recovery, meaning you need to sleep more, you need to eat more, you need to eat better, like you need to do more GPP, like depending on whatever it is, you need to speed up your recovery or you need to back down your training for a little bit. And deload, as we say, until your flexibility gets back to normal and you can maintain it well. Like a lot of the guys, these guys that I talk about whose traps are hard, and the guys that like can't get their arms past here, they can't lift their arm above here, that didn't happen overnight. And in powerlifting, the interesting thing to me is it takes years and years and years to gain strength. Okay, that makes sense. People accept that. A lot of people accept that. A lot of people don't. But at the same time, overtraining takes a while. Inflexibility and immobility takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I'm not flexible. Well, yeah, it's because you didn't fucking move. Like, if you stop moving your arm higher than here, after a certain amount of time, it's not going to want to go higher than that anymore. And this is on a side note. This is one of the things I've said about older people. I've said this ever since I was in physical therapy and stuff. Most of the problems people complain about as they get older isn't because they got older. It's because they stopped moving. The dude that goes, man, I don't have the flat-assed old man who doesn't have an ass. Oh, I just got older. No, you didn't get older, dude. You stopped moving and you sit on a bar stool. You sit in a chair at work all day, then you go sit at a bar stool for a couple hours. Then on the weekends, you don't do shit. Why would your ass like maintain muscle? All you do is sit on it now. Like, it wasn't the fact that you got older that it disappeared. It's the fact that you stopped moving it. Granted, yes, we get older, things are going to happen, no doubt about it. But the rate that it's happening and the excuse that people make is normally, it's for lack of doing it. Like, it's lack of using those muscles. If you don't use them, you're going to lose them. If you don't use your mobility, you're going to use it. Look at young kids now. Today with young kids that aren't going outside as much and aren't playing as much and aren't exploring and they're sitting and playing video games, no wonder their testosterone levels are in the floor. No wonder they're overweight. No wonder they have no muscle mass. They don't do anything. So there you go. They're young and they still are built like old people. Because they didn't use any of it. So there's one other thing. There was one other thing, like with the auto regulation of how is your body doing based on how is my flexibility. Dang it, there was another one that just slipped my mind. Give me a second. Kind of, I think I was going to talk about not necessarily auto-regulation, but just kind of knowing how your body's doing. Like you can go, hey, my shoulder hurts, but then you can look at your stretching and go, wait a minute, man. My anterior delt and my pec are super, super tight all of a sudden, or this last week or two, and my shoulder's been hurting. Maybe I need to focus on that stretch a little more and open it up and see how that affects my shoulder. So stretching can also be a predictor. Well, it's not predictor. Like foresight for injuries. Like it can help you recognize, hey, things are off. So I need to look at this. If you start having problems with your hip, go, wait a minute, let me look at my stretching. Was I tighter in this area or that area? Or have I not been doing my, have I not been stretching internal or external on my hip? Is one of those tighter than the other? And you can kind of start looking at that stuff and using flexibility, which a lot of therapists will actually check your flexibility depending on, what's going on. And that can have a big impact on your injuries. So flexibility and stretching has a pretty major impact on an athlete. And it's funny to me that stretching is part of almost every sport out there, but powerlifters and strength athletes, some powerlifters, I should say, I would say a large amount of powerlifters and a large amount of some other strength athletes do not, like, stretching is not even part of it. And it's like, well, you're still an athlete. Why wouldn't you stretch? Why wouldn't you be flexible? I mean, throwers are some of the most explosive people on this planet. And if you've been watching them lately, they're destroying numbers, and those guys are strong as shit. Like if you follow some of these guys like Kovacs and the guy that just broke the world record, whose name's slipping my mind right now. Like you follow their social media and watch some of the lifts they do. These are strong, man, and they're very flexible. So that's not an accident that those two things are happening. And there's a lot. I mean, I've seen a lot. Dude, look at West Side guys. Most West Side guys are tight as 2x4s. Strong as shit, though. I mean, and you'll see guys like, I would be curious. I never actually asked Chuck Vogelpool how flexible he was. But, I mean, the fact that he squats super wide and it's an excellent position. So he has to have some flexibility, whether he stretches it or not. I'm not really sure. But I know a lot of the guys I knew from West Side, they're tight as 2x4s. But that also, like, look at the injury rate. And I don't know. Again, that depends on the people. I mean, there's always outliers, and there's always a certain amount of individuality. Like, I know some guys that are tight that just never get fucking hurt, man. Like, I don't know what the deal is. They just have such fast recovery that every time some minor thing happens, they get healed up before it turns into something or whatever. But I mean, overall, generally speaking, if you spend a little bit of time stretching, it's going to pay off big dividends in your sport, and powerlifting's a sport, and in your life and your longevity and health, which is important, man. We're not making, nobody's making a shit ton of money in powerlifting. There are some people making some money, but like, man, live long and prosper, brother. Like stay healthy and live as long as you can and be able to lift for as long as you can. I mean, we all love lifting, so I want to be lifting when I'm 80 and 90 and 100 years old. I don't know what I'll be able to lift at that time, but we're going to find out. And now when it comes to stretching, in order to gain a certain level of flexibility, I feel like you do need to do it more often. But the beautiful thing about stretching is once you get flexible, maintaining it's not that hard. I would kind of say that with strength to a certain extent too, but most people won't ever back off enough to see how little it takes to actually maintain strength. I think they would be surprised, though, if that being the case. So at this point in my life, I don't honestly sit down and spend a lot of time stretching. And for some reason, I do find that my lower body will maintain flexibility longer than my upper body. But again, I think that's because I move and put it through a fuller range than I do my upper body generally. So once you get flexible, you don't have to stretch as much, and you can end up doing mobility work. I think a lot of big squatters and big benchers would benefit from throwing a tennis ball against a wall for 15 or 20 minutes a day, just to get them up here, get this back here, get this external rotation, and just move it. So you could do your stretches, get flexible, and then you can maintain the flexibility with a lot of mobility, with just mobility work. Will help maintain that. Now, when it comes to stretching, I'm an old school stretching guy. So you have the Golgi tendon, the muscle spindle fiber, all these things. I can't remember the exact number. I think the Golgi tendon will, like, basically when you go to stretch, it's almost like your muscle fights you. And it takes, I think, 7 seconds before that Golgi tendon will actually go, okay, we're not in harm. He's stretching, and it will relax the muscle. And you can literally feel it. Like if you bend over trying to touch your toes, you're like, God damn, it's tight. Oh, okay, I can go a little further. Like you can actually feel when it relaxes, and that's when you're really stretching the muscle. And there's also some interesting theories out there, and I think Juju Mufu talks about this, but don't quote me on that. A lot of times people are already more flexible than they think, but their body doesn't know. Like their body is like, oh, hey, no, we haven't been here before. But they could actually do it. And that's where he incorporates some interesting theories, and I don't want to give away everything he does, because he does make his living in this arena. And he has a great book, and it's a reasonably priced, and I don't even know. Right here. This one, Legendary Flexibility. This is a great book. It's an easy read. And you would be surprised. Once you get in here and look at his theories, it's like, well, wait a minute. This really doesn't take that much time. It's not that complicated. Maybe I should do that. So again, there's different theories. There's different ways. I was old school. So I like to hold my stretches for 30 seconds to a minute. In order to gain most of my flexibility, it was back when we had TV and you'd watch a program that was a half hour. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm watching this program anyway. So I'm going to sit on the floor and I'm going to stretch during the program. When the program's over, I'm done stretching. So it was pretty easy. I'm watching the program anyway. I can stretch while I'm watching the program. And I would just go over it and I would hold my stretches for 30 seconds to a minute. I did all old school standard stretches and it worked fine for me. I didn't have any issues at all. Some people, they try to do it that way and it doesn't work. And then they go to something more where like Juju Mufu was like, okay, just push it a little bit and I'll get up and go do something else and then come back and push it a little bit. And there's a lot to that too. I think I've actually switched to where I do some of that stuff, especially throughout the day while you're working. Because you can go, hey, I'm going to sit down and do this stretch, bam, bam, did one stretch, held it for a little bit, and I can get up and go do some work. Come back 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hit it again, and you can actually make a ton of progress doing that. So I don't think there's a standard, here's the best way to stretch. For me, old school worked. It was simple, didn't take a lot of thought. I can zone out while I'm doing it, other than the fact that it's uncomfortable as hell. And it's really easy. So stretching is not this huge complicated thing, and don't overcomplicate it. Don't think it's absolutely crazy. There's tons of guys out there that can show you this stuff. I mean, you buy this one little book right here and read this book. You're going to learn a shit ton from it. And it's going to tell you pretty much what you need to know to completely get started. And then once you get started, that's when you go, hey, okay, I have an idea what's going on. I've done this. It's working. What do I need to tweak for me? What is more tight? What is more tighter? That doesn't sound right. What has become tighter that I need to give a little more focus on, and just kind of tweak it to what you need, and use your own brain and expand what your body needs, because nobody can ever know your body as good as you can know your body. Juju Mufu did respond on my Instagram post and ask what stretches I like the best. So if I was to pick 4 stretches in my head, for some reason I'm thinking 4. first of all, would definitely be the one that this whole process started on again, because I hadn't posted anything about stretching, and then I came across an old video and somebody's like, "Hey, are you still that flexible, or is that current?" And I go, "No, it's not current, but give me a week." And I was able to do it, and that's sitting on the floor, legs spread eagle, and just bending forward. And I think the biggest thing that I do with that one is making sure I have a neutral low back spine, which means there's going to be just a little bit of an arch, my natural lordosis in my low back. I'm going to keep my upper body, my shoulders neutral and my upper body straight. And then I'm actually going to brace a little bit, like a 50% intensity on my brace, just to help me hold that low back arch. And then I'm going to bend forward. I honestly feel like everybody should at least be able to get to their elbows fairly easily. Like I would say, if you're going to pick a goal on this stretch, be able to go down and touch your elbows on the ground and actually rest your upper body on the ground on your elbows. That's a good goal, not unbelievable to get to. But if you can do that, you can most likely squat wide and shouldn't have any, and deadlift sumo and shouldn't really have any positions. The key, though, I find when a lot of people stretch their hamstrings, they round their low back. And I'm just not a big fan of that. I think you get more out of having that low back arch. Then I would go to what they call, I believe they call it a cobra pose in yoga. Basically laying prone on the ground. You're going to do a push-up, leaving your hips on the ground. So you're going to arch up as hard as you can. And I really like that stretch for everybody, because if you watch a lot of people who go through life, they never put their back in that position. They're always rounded over, whether they're at a chair at work or, you know, I used to love when I was in physical therapy, because I would hear these physical therapists like yell at the carpenters about their body positions and shit. And I go, do you realize, I've actually pulled some therapists into the room and go, hold on a minute. Do you realize what that man does for a living? Like, he can't, if he worried about being in the correct position all day long, he'd get fired. And a lot of times he can't, there is no best position. Like, he's got to put his body in a shitty position. That's just the fucking way it is. Kind of like if you're a strongman. You can't pick up an Atlas stone with your back arched. It's not going to fucking happen. Like, you can do the initial, but at some point you're going to have to round your back. So rounding your back is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're in rounded back all day long and you never go up into extension, it's going to cause problems with that little nucleus in your vertebrae. So I have found that even with powerlifters, if they just do this and get in that stretch and stretch their back, it's going to help with longevity. And I try to get every person, I train some older clients, and I train just regular people. I try to get everybody to start getting used to doing that pose and lay on your stomach. And if it hurts to lay on your stomach, like just laying on your stomach on the floor hurts, then start out doing that and going, hey, okay, I'm going to lay here for a little bit. When it eases up a little bit, I'm just going to push just a little bit. I'm just going to push a little bit, not into pain, but into discomfort. And I'm going to gradually try to push more. And over time, I'm going to go, okay, I can get on my elbows now. Okay, so I'm going to push up, get on my elbows, and I'm going to sit here and concentrate on letting everything relax down. Then I'm going to push a little further. And eventually, over time, you want to be able to push yourself as far up as you can in like an upper body push-up position, but your hips are still touching the ground. So I think that's just a general health of your back kind of a thing. Then I would go to, I see so many people that have shoulder issues. And I think a lot of shoulder issues come from tight anterior and not very mobile posterior upper back. And from my experience, and I've had some older clients who cannot scapular retract at all. Because first of all, they haven't used those muscles, and their anterior has been so tight that it's just pulled. They're like their middle back has been pulled into extension for so long that it is just tightened up, and it doesn't want to relax and it doesn't want to move anymore. And it takes a little while to get that moving and working. And I mean, I've had clients that people that know them and know me are like, holy shit, what did you do, man? that guy, he looks amazing, man. I saw him walking around the other day, and he's upright and he's strong, and he like even seems happier. He's like in a better mood. And I go, yeah, because he's not all friggin' crunched over like fucking Shrek all day long. So the one stretch I like to do with that is with either a band or a stick, and honestly, just coming back and going back as far as you can, and opening up all of this, the anterior shoulder, the pecs, the whole anterior, just trying to open it all up. And with that one of the key things that I like is like a lot of guys will stick their head forward while they're doing it. No, try to take that chin and like protract your head backwards. Retract. That'd be retracting. I don't know. I don't remember the movement for this one right here, right now. But just driving it back, keeping it in neutral and driving that chin back while you're opening that chest up. Another variation of that is taking a towel. I use a pivot, but pivots are expensive for some reason. All a pivot is just a little mound that you lay on. You can roll up a towel, put it right in between your shoulder blades, lay on the floor, get up at 90, and just let it relax. And I don't know how many people I know that can't let their hands can't touch because they're way too tight. And usually when I do that, I'll have somebody lay there for 5, maybe 10 minutes. And then when they stand up, they're like, you just see this look on their face and they're like, oh my God, like, did I get taller? Like, why does this feel so good to stand up? Because you're actually standing up straight finally, and you're not all hunched over and rounded in. So I really like that stretch because in powerlifting, I've seen so many guys that are so tight there. And in regular life, that's going to lead to shoulder injuries. You're going to wear that joint out way faster. You're going to have way more problems because you simply will not open that up. What was the other one? That's the spread eagle, cobra, opening the chest up. Those actually would be my 3. I said 4, but that would be 3 like go-tos that I think everybody should do. Another one. Here's another one, because this goes with, and for some reason my brain's actually going back to PT right now and going, what stretches would help the most people? Like minimal. If you said, hey, listen, man, I'll give you 5 minutes a day. Okay, let me give you 4 stretches that you could actually do in 5 minutes that will make a difference. The other one would be the couch stretch, where you're putting one foot up on the couch, the other foot out in front of you, and going down and stretching out that hip flexor and the rectus femoris muscle. And the reason I would go back to that one again is people are sitting down all the time. And these hip flexors are just tightening up. And then when they stand up, now their pelvis and everything's all tilted and out of whack, which is creating the back problems. So if you incorporate the couch stretch and the cobra stretch, you're going to do your back a world of good. Now, when it comes to powerlifting, a lot of powerlifters have jobs. They have regular jobs. They live regular lives. So they're going to have the same issues that the average person has, only it's going to be exacerbated because they're also lifting, 2 to 5 times a week, maybe 6 or 7, depending on who the person is and their recovery rates. So they're dealing with all this other soreness on top of it. And, they have being a power, and I dealt with this a lot because I worked for a long time. I worked for Southern Wine and Spirits, and I was a Teamster. So I drove, I did warehouse. I did everything over the time I was there. But for a while I was on a forklift. And the day after heavy back sessions, it would be a fight to stay in an arched position and keep my shoulders up all day long. Because my back would be so tired. I would just every now and then I'd find myself just all hunched over like this. And I'm like, God damn it, Chad, get up, sit up straight, sit right. Because if you're doing that too, if you're crunching over, our rib cage is made a certain way. Okay. And our organs all fit in there. If you start doing this, you're actually putting pressure on all those organs and they can't function to the level that they should be functioning. They're all crushed down and there's a much more pressure inside of there that doesn't need to be there all day. So you stand up straight, now everything can flow better, everything can move better, your organs can work better, you got more blood flow, and you'll feel better too. So it's important to do that, and that's where if we continue to stretching these things that we know are going to get tight, we're going to be better off in the long run. And that's why those are my 4 go-to stretches, that if I only have 4 stretches to do, or I get lazy and I'm not really actually maintaining my stretching, those are the 4 stretches that I'm going to fit in throughout the day at some point. Now I just thought of something else. I don't know why we don't training. The concept of training is an interesting thing to me, because a lot of times when you mention training, people are like, oh yeah, in the gym. Like, yeah, my training. Like, okay, what's your training like? Oh, I train linear periodization. Oh, I train conjugate. No, what's your training like? Yeah, that's my training. No. I said, what's your training like? To me, your training means your nutrition, your sleep, your mobility, your flexibility, and the stuff you do in the gym. All of that's training to me. So if I go, okay, if somebody listens to this and goes, Chad, you know what? You convinced me. I think I could benefit from some flexibility work, and I think I'll lift more weight if I do that. Okay, then incorporate it in your training. If you train 4 days a week, add a 5th day of training. 30 minutes of stretching. And it's been a long time, but I have an upper body stretching video and a lower body stretching video on the Courage Barbell YouTube channel, which, I mean, I hope you guys will bear with me. I see my numbers dropping on my Instagram, which I'm pretty sure they're dropping. I don't look at them all the time, but last time I looked at it, it looked like it dropped some. Because right now I'm in this limbo right now where I'm not doing many training videos. My gym's not set up. I'm trying to get the building built, because once the building's up, I can set up the gym. Even if I'm not living and I don't have my living quarters done yet, I can at least set up the gym, get one of the bathrooms done, and I'll move my travel trailer over there. And then I can start doing more videos and stuff. And I think I want to split up my YouTube channel where there's one for the podcast and one for the other training stuff. And I'd like to go through it and just redo all the exercises and add some more stuff in there. And I'm debating on doing a series with my mom's, I think 75 now. And I've trained her a few times throughout her life, but it's getting to the point where she's got some bad habits. She wrecked a motorcycle at one point and busted her ankle up, and she still kind of limps from that. And that needs to be fixed. So I'm thinking about, I was going to work with her anyway once the gym's up, and I'm thinking about making a series about that maybe as well, and maybe some stuff with my sister, and then just filming more stuff. I'd like to get more content out there to kind of help you guys as much as I can. But why not make stretching, it's part of your training. So then you schedule everything else. Why can't you schedule your training or stretching as your training? Like I said, you train 4 days a week, add another day in there, add 2 days in there. Make it okay, on Tuesday mornings, I do 30 minutes of stretching, then I do my gym, later at night, or vice versa, however it works for you. But I mean, why don't we add stretching in, as it is training? It is part of training. Training is not just lifting weights. This was actually some advice Dave Tate gave me years ago, and I've talked about it and mentioned it many times. If you're doing it to get stronger, then it is training. If you're forcing down a meal, that's training. If it's 9 o'clock at night and you're like, son of a bitch, man, I'm fucking 50 grams off my protein. Well, then forcing that extra meal down is training. Going, hey man, my recovery sucks, man. I got to get sleep tonight. I got to get to bed early. That's training. Anything you do to get stronger is training. So if stretching is part of your training, why don't you just add on a time and go, listen, these are the times I go to the gym. I always make those. Now here's the time I stretch. I need to always make that. And the beautiful thing about that is the better you get, the more you put into it, the less you can do. And honestly, a lot of people don't know that about strength, but strength is very similar. The better your technique gets, the better you are at pushing yourself, the more you're getting out of your central nervous system, the less you're going to be able to train. Because you're going to be pushing your body that much harder every single time that you do train now. But that's a whole different subject. So I've talked over an hour basically about stretching. I think that's probably enough. I do want to say, This is a good book. It's an easy read. It's a good book. A lot of cool advice and ideas in there. You know, but then again, it's stretching. Don't. That's why I like that book, because it is pretty straightforward and simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You know, right now, tomorrow, if you did a sport in high school, you probably stretched before that sport. Start there. Like, you can start there tomorrow. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't think you need to know every goddamn thing about it. Like, just start doing it. And the key things are like, this is going to help me hit positions. This is going to help keep my muscles healthy. And it's actually going to help recovery because of blood flow, because of hypertension. It's going to keep my joints healthy, which is going to allow me to do this longer. And it's also going to be another gauge for me to know how I'm doing. If I'm fully recovering, if I need more recovery, if I'm so recovered I can train more. Like, man, if you're stretching and you're hitting it all the time, every time you're stretching, you're like, bam, dude. Like, hey, man, maybe I can fit in another training day. Because if you are recovered, if you're recovered and you're doing your recovery phase and your growth phase, and you could do another one of those in a week, well, then do it, man. That's just going to make it faster. That's just going to make you gain faster. Now, if you're not getting the recovery, you can't just go, oh, I'm going to train 7 days a week because when I train, I get stronger, because that's not true. If everything is going right and you have extra, you can train more. And that's going to vary depending on people. It's going to vary depending on how serious you are about recovery. If recovery is actually part of your training, that's going to allow you to train more. So thanks for listening. Thanks for bearing with me. I have some other cool stuff coming in the future. I'm sorry I don't post that much about training right now, but I'm honestly not training that much right now. I mean, I'm doing a lot more bike riding. I'm doing my weird stuff on my property, beating up a tire with my sledgehammer. I'm doing a lot more hiking and exploring right now, but I'm really itching to get back into the gym. And I kind of decided the other day, I go, it's going to be interesting to see like where my bench, squat, and deadlift are when I come back after this extended period of time without training seriously or even consistently, and to build back. I think that's actually going to be fun. For the first time in my life, I'm like, yeah, I lose strength, whatever. I'll get it back. Like, I was always like, man, I work so hard for this, I don't want to lose any of it. And now I'm like, yeah, I can gain it back. It's not a problem. And I have some different ideas on things that I do, because I still follow all these other people, and I still talk to other people. And I'm like, dude, right now, like, I can do whatever the hell I want, man. So, like, I'm not going, oh shit, dude, I got to get ready for this meet. I can't change everything. I got a meet coming up. I don't have anything coming up. So I can try whatever the hell I want. And there's so many cool guys out there and guys doing different things that I'm still more than open to trying new stuff and seeing what happens. So thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting me. And I'm out.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit CourageBarbell.com. Until next time.